From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
And good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington. It's the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. And every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter to you. Today's topic, to your health, as the debate over the reformation of the Affordable Care Act continues. One Nevada leader says patient-centered health care must be the top priority. And that leader is my guest today, of course. He is Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Marilee.
Thank you. There is another way, a better way, to provide all Americans with health care that is accessible, affordable, and sustainable. That quote comes from the GOP health care reform plan, which passed the House but failed to pass the Senate last year. So as the reform effort continues, today on Eye on Washington, we'll learn what my guest calls the main problems with Obamacare. We'll look at the pros and cons of the GOP attempt to fix it. We'll discuss his bill to help out Nevada residents who lost coverage in the wake of that Anthem pullout. And we'll ask him what he most wants to see accomplished on healthcare reform in this Congress. The American Health Care Act of 2017 is a bill to partially repeal the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Last May, the House voted to pass the legislation by a narrow 217 to 213 margin. It has not yet been passed by the Senate. Among its goals, repeal of parts of the ACA within the scope of the federal budget, including provisions contained within the Internal Revenue Code, such as the individual mandates, employer mandates, and various taxes, and also modifications to the federal Medicaid program. The Congressional Budget Office projects that the act would increase the number of uninsured people by 23 million over 10 years, but would decrease the federal budget deficit by about 119 billion, or about 1% over the same period, mainly by cutting Medicaid coverage. Meanwhile, as we tape this show, here's where things stand. Having successfully done away with the requirement that people have health insurance, the Republicans' new target is the mandate that employers provide coverage for employees. So, Congressman, we have so much to get to today, and I thought we'd spend this opening segment what you think caused the GOP plan to not pass last year, and what the goal is moving forward.
Well, fair enough, and thank you for in the lead-in saying we need to fix the Affordable Care Act. I know that there's a lot of political cliches out there about repeal and replace, and that's what they are. Not that the House bill was the answer to everything, but at least it started, because I've heard of nobody that said the status quo is okie dokie. So now when we get back to your question, which is how come it didn't pass, it's like, I don't know, with all due respect to my colleagues on the north side of the building, that's a good question for them. Not that they should have passed ours, but they passed nothing. And so that's a problem in terms of when you get past all the political demagoguery and positioning, it's like we need to do some things about how we provide health care for people who need a safety net,
right,
who have pre-existing conditions, or who have reached the point where, you know, you've got traditional Medicaid, and then you've got people over 65. That's a complex mix, but nonetheless, it's one that has to be dealt with. So continuing not to deal with it, I think, is a failure of leadership in both parties.
Sure.
Because people suffer on both sides of the aisle.
And then nothing is
Yep.
changed, nothing gets accomplished. A gripe by some is that the premiums were projected to decrease for younger, healthier, and wealthier people, while those older and poorer would see premiums increase. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, that's part of the mix. That's the challenge of finding a solution. But let's face it, the reason that healthcare has become so acute is because my generation, the baby boomers, who paid for those folks who were older and less wealthier, because there were many more of us than them, just by virtue of the demographic. And now we're getting to that point where they're not building golf courses for us anymore. They're building assisted living facilities. And so you're like, well, who's going to pay for us? And it's like, guess what? That old model doesn't work. So that's where we have to go say, first of all, let's talk about cost. Let's talk about how we get things for the best possible value for the buck so it's cheaper than just simply sitting there going, well, we're going to go to wherever we think we can find the money and take as much as we can and pay for those who don't have it. We have to have a little more leadership and thought than just take from one and give to the other.
Let's spend a moment talking about a very big issue in Nevada, and that's, of course, Medicaid. First, was part of the reason that the GOP plan, the AHCA, failed, was it due to its reductions in Medicaid spending and coverage relative to current law?
Well, actually, I think there was a huge misunderstanding because when I first saw the bill, said, I'm not leaving the state $500 million in debt 4 years down the road, and I'm not kicking people off of coverage who already had it. The reality of the bill was this. Nobody got kicked off of Medicaid who was already on it. You could still enroll people for 2 more years if it had become law, and the federal government would still reimburse Governor Sandoval's folks 90% of the cost. So you're going, wow, no $500 million. Now,
what about after the 2 years?
After the 2 years, that gave you the time to say, how are we going to treat that? And there was also this thing called the churn where people left. If you left to take employer insurance or because you made more than 138%, then you weren't eligible for it anymore under existing Affordable Care Act rules. So that was one of the things where it's like, hey, we got to get started on this instead of just the big thing of don't change anything, because don't change anything means that plane's hitting the ground without its landing gear down at some point in time.
You know, quickly, we're almost out of time for this segment, but some of the other reasons the bill didn't pass, I read on CNBC.com the bill, quote, got stuck between a rock and a hard place, with the rock being a group of more conservative senators who said it didn't go far enough, and a group of more moderate senators who didn't like the reduced coverage or rising premiums. But that kind of gets back to the first thing you said right off the top of the Q&A. If it's just going to go round and round without the coming together, then nothing's going to move. Is that?
If you're going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good, then I think you've accurately described it.
Okay, but this quote, I guess, is accurate.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that quote at all over there.
All right, when we return, the update on the fallout from the anthem pullout and my guest bill to prevent many of you from paying what he calls an unfair penalty. That's coming up next.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, brought to you by Caesars Entertainment, the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, the Las Vegas Sands Corporation, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, NV Energy, Jim Marsh Automotive and Body Shop, the Rogich Communications Group, and Renown Health.
I have 3 tests next week. I'm going to be studying all weekend. Ugh. Are you studying tonight? We can meet up and study together. Oh yeah, that sounds good. What time? I work until 6. Okay, sounds good. Just text me after. Okay. No!
There is no text, tweet, or call that's worth a life.
One pedestrian death is one too many.
Look up.
And look out for each other.
Want more federal news that affects Nevada, its businesses, and its residents? Then you need to subscribe to Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, your sole source of online news direct from Washington, D.C. Visit joycecommunications.com and subscribe today.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Planet Hollywood, Paris, Harrah's, Caesar's Palace. It's one of the most exciting skylines in the world, Las Vegas. Caesars Entertainment has nearly 50 casinos worldwide, including these. But no matter which casino you visit, we want you to play responsibly. And if you need help setting or keeping a limit, we hope you'll call this number. You see, we know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
A family's presence in the hospital helps children heal faster and cope better. But children who need specialized medical care are often sent out of the Reno area for treatment. Costs can get unmanageable, and it can be difficult for families to accompany their sick child. The Travel for Treatment program, presented by Ronald McDonald House Charities Northern Nevada, gives parents travel assistance when a child's medical treatment is not available at a local hospital. Please contact us today for more information and to see how you can help. Donate online at rmhc-reno.org.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our look at continuing effort to reform Obamacare and my guest's thoughts on how to do so in a way that focuses first on a patient-physician relationship. My guest today is Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. So let's spend this segment discussing the latest regarding Anthem Healthcare's exit from Nevada last year and what my guest is doing to help those Nevadans affected by the move. Last June, Anthem Healthcare pulled out of several states, including Nevada. It was devastating news to many state residents, especially affecting the rural areas where the plan had thousands of enrollees. The pullout was horrible news for 6 counties in my guest's district too: Churchill, Elko, Pershing, Eureka, Humboldt, and Lander counties were left without a single healthcare provider to choose from in 2018. Now, prior to the Anthem exit, other large insurers already were leaving Obamacare exchanges, reducing coverage options, and in many cases, increasing costs for individuals and families. Well, Congressman Amodei has been working to make sure his constituents get a break from another cost. He recently partnered with Nevada U.S. Senator Dean Heller on the Protection from Insurance Exchange Monopolies Act. The bill would protect those in counties with one or no health plan offerings on the Obamacare exchanges from having to pay the individual mandate penalty. And Congressman, a total of 10 of your counties were left with 0 or 1 carrier. Yep. And as you first introduced this bill with then Congressman Heck and Hardy, you said that just one option to choose from these Nevadans meant these Nevadans were denied options and affordability that was originally promised by the ACA.
Yep. So to punish somebody because they haven't selected an option when there isn't an option, as in 0 or 1, I mean, I'm a product of public education. I think an option means you have 2 choices. And so if you only have one choice, then it's like, this shouldn't be something that they would be subjected to. That's not politics, that's just commonsensical.
Yeah, when you announced the bill originally, Congressman Heck said the penalty tax on counties with only 1 carrier was, quote, another example of the failures of the ACA and highlights the urgent need to replace the broken parts of the law with healthcare reforms that actually expand access to quality, affordable healthcare.
Well, you know, he's hit on something that is very little reported, but quite frankly, there's a tug of war going on with private insurance companies and the federal government. Mm-hmm. Because guess what? I mean, all of those subsidies for people with pre-existing or other things like this, or where they're saying you have to subsidize our rates that we're charging our customers, or we're not going to carry that. And Nevada's not the only one. I mean, there's multiple states that are in it. And so you're sitting here going, listen, at some point in time, because there's money to be made in health insurance, even in the present demographic day and age. Look at all the folks that have employer-provided insurance in Nevada, almost half. Now, they're not the folks who are in the hospitals. About 3/4 of the people who are in hospitals in Nevada using their services are government-provided in one form or another. So that's an important distinction. But nonetheless, it's like we have to get in and go basically to those health insurance companies. Listen, we are not the insurer of last resort for everybody. Now, there's always going to be federal money in it, but we've got to get control of costs because, quite frankly, Marilee, you sit there and look at this and you say, when we're already borrowing 40 cents of every dollar to pay everything, defense, the whole 9 yards, it's like at some point in time you have to say, here's a system that we think we can sustain and be affordable and provide people what they need, instead of just going, we're just going to keep doing the status quo and hoping that something changes.
So, as I understand it, last year, Nevadans had 3 insurance carriers on the Nevada Health Link, right? Anthem, Health Plan of Nevada, and Prominence. But I want to be clear that 59% of Nevada counties had just Anthem, HMO, or PPO, right?
Yep.
59%.
But what that tells you about our state, though, which is it's not a partisan thing. It's one of the most urbanized states in the nation. You've got Western Nevada, Reno Sparks, the Truckee Meadows, and you've got Southern Nevada. So when you say, hey, we've got 6 counties that just had this, it's like, yeah, you did, because quite frankly, those markets are that big. And so they say simply, we don't want to compete for that market. We ran into the same thing years ago with the medical malpractice insurance crisis under Governor Gwynn. Small market, we don't need to compete there.
We're just about out of time, but would you quickly remind our audience just what the individual mandate is and how it's affected Nevadans and other Americans?
Well, it basically said you must buy health insurance regardless of your age or whatever, because quite frankly, we're going to force younger people to subsidize older people like me who tend to use health insurance more as we get older. So that was your way of basically mandating a group of everyone.
Okay. And when we return, the unique healthcare needs of rural residents and my guest patient first focus, he's going to explain right after this.
Nevada's direct link to Capitol Hill. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. The only statewide Nevada news show based in Washington, D.C. All the top federal matters that matter most to Nevadans. Marilee talks with our congressional delegation and other leaders about the federal news you need to know. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Nevada's Eye on Capitol Hill.
When you think RTC, what comes to mind? How about jobs? RTC road projects bring thousands of jobs to Washoe County, expanding and connecting northern Nevada, growing our local economy, providing a more secure future for our residents and their families. So when you think jobs, think RTC, your RTC, the RTC of Washoe County.
We're not a miracle drug. We're not a technology. We're not doctors. Just the hope, which can often be the best cure of all. The Ronald McDonald House, a home away from home for seriously ill children and their families.
Planet Hollywood, Paris, Harrah's, Caesar's Palace. It's one of the most exciting skylines in the world, Las Vegas. Caesars Entertainment has nearly 50 casinos worldwide, including these. But no matter which casino you visit, we want you to play responsibly. And if you need help setting or keeping a limit, we hope you'll call this number. You see, we know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on
it. Safety. We all think about it. You think about it when he buckles in, when you check your mirrors and put away your phone. RTC thinks about safety too. In fact, we create it. Center turn lanes mean fewer blind spots. Bike lanes keep cyclists and you safe. Roundabouts reduce injury collisions, and all these crosswalks are designed to keep families like yours safe. Safety is your priority, and it's ours too. Every day, in everything we do.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of the latest regarding efforts to reform Obamacare and what this all means to you in Nevada. We've been visiting with Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. Well, I themed this show to your health, and I really want to emphasize that idea in this segment. While my guest has told the press his goal for reform is a patient-centered one for Nevadans and all Americans, we need to take a special look at the unique healthcare coverage needs for rural residents, as so many of the Congressman's constituents are in rural Nevada. Now, as I mentioned in our last segment, prior to the Anthem pullout, 59% of Nevada counties had two options: Anthem HMO and Anthem PPO. The dearth of offerings, sadly, is common for rural area citizens, according to the USA Today. About 8,000 Nevadans lost their insurance this year with no options to buy a different subsidized plan on the Federal Health Exchange. More than 5,000 of them live in 3 counties and Carson City. Meanwhile, according to the site Jacobin.com, single issuer counties now make up more than half of the counties in the United States. And Congressman, it's no secret that insurers simply have less financial incentive to offer plans in the more or the less densely populated places. So that means a whole lot of your Nevada constituents have an especially hard time finding any coverage through ACA exchanges.
Yep, which makes the issue not one that, like, the solution in Philadelphia, the solution in Dallas, the solution in Denver is not the solution in Winnemucca, in Elko, in Ely, or places like that, which means that part of the discussion needs to be, how do you maximize technology? How do you maximize incentivizing providers, not just doctors, but other providers, to be out in those areas, sure, even if it's on a rotating basis where you ride the circuit? And then how do you maximize the efficiency of networks when you really need to go to Reno or to Salt Lake or to Las Vegas, that you can get there in some sort of orderly fashion instead of, oh my God. And so that's been the problem that a lot of us that represent rural areas say, come on, there's one size does not fit all. We've got to have solutions for that too.
I know you go back to the district a lot. What do you hear from, especially in the wake of the Anthem pullout, what are your constituents saying to you?
Well, let me tell you this. First of all, hats off to the job that the young lady who runs the Nevada Exchange does, because they plugged that back in and there now is an option from a different company for there. So that doesn't mean the problem's solved. It means, hey, guess what? We've stabilized the patient, if you will, but still the overall reforms still need to be looked at and come up with. And it's one of those things, Marilee, where quite frankly, listen, if somebody thinks there's a silver bullet for healthcare, I sure wish they'd share it, because it's one of those issues that's going to fall into hard work. Not everybody's going to be happy. You've got different issues, but it's like to continue to do nothing and hoping that you don't have to take a political hard stance is something that I think is just simply not an option.
Right. What'd you say about good versus great, right? You've got
exactly. It's like, and by the way, in order to get there, you got to start.
I want to steer this back again to comments you've made in the press about the importance of focusing first on patients. You've said that first and foremost, beyond whatever Congress or whatever party is doing, you know, regarding the ABA and its reform, you've got to put the focus on the people.
Yep. And I think the market will take care of itself as long as you provide access to the people that is reasonable. And that's why you say, well, the insurance industry's pulling out. It's like they're not pulling out of the group plans. There's money to be made there, and they're making money, by the way. Look at their stock prices and look at their bonuses they're paying to executives. So there's still money in healthcare, boys and girls.
And when we return, Congressman Amodei's health care reform goals in 2018. Let's find out what they are right after this.
Planet Hollywood, Paris, Harrah's, Caesar's Palace. It's one of the most exciting skylines in the world, Las Vegas. Caesars Entertainment has nearly 50 casinos worldwide, including these. But no matter which casino you visit, we want you to play responsibly. And if you need help setting or keeping a limit, we hope you'll call this number. You see, we know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
Nevada's direct link to Capitol Hill. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. The only statewide Nevada news show based in Washington, D.C. All the top federal matters that matter most to Nevadans. Marilee talks with our congressional delegation and other leaders about the federal news you need to know. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Nevada's Eye on Capitol Hill.
I dare you. I dare you to change the world. Yeah, you. Getting that college education.
I dare you to be somebody important.
Like be a teacher. Or a reality TV star.
I dare you to stand up here.
To call the shots.
To be a role model.
An inspiration. An innovator.
To be a teacher.
Think you can change my life?
Make me excited about science like you?
Have a career that really means something?
Then do it.
I dare you.
Are you studying tonight? We can meet up and study together. Just text me after. Okay. No!
There is no text, tweet, or call that's worth a life.
One pedestrian death is one too many.
Look up.
And look out for each other.
This girl is very pretty. It's inciting feelings of jealousy in me. We should pick on her.
I'm insecure about some things, so I think we should put some me stuff on here. Maybe even some lies, too.
Yeah.
I just want to be accepted by you both, so I'm gonna send this to my friends so they think I'm cool.
Kids bully for all kinds of reasons. None of them are good. Find ways to get involved at flipthescriptnow.org.
Want more federal news that affects Nevada, its businesses, and its residents? Then you need to subscribe to Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter, your sole source of online news direct from Washington, D.C. Visit joycecommunications.com and subscribe today.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington. It is time for our closing segment of today's show, and we've had as our special guest today Nevada U.S. Congressman Mark Amodei. Congressman, I think we'll just wrap up the show with this. Where does the whole health care issue stand? And what if you had a top goal or a top handful of what to do to solve all this, what would you say?
Well, I think the pieces are out there. The House has passed the funding for community health centers. The Senate hasn't. And I'm not saying that in a blame thing. I'm just saying we need to get some leadership between the two bodies to go, here you go. I mean, community health centers are incredibly important in Nevada. You talk about the rurals. In my district, there's 18 of them, maybe 19 by now. That's a great access point. They're efficient, they manage care, they spend federal dollars wisely. We passed the bill months ago to fund them, and guess what? It's still not funded. Just recently, we had the fight about funding CHIP. And so that finally got through for the next 5 or 6 years. There's people out there trying to scare Medicare people. It's like Medicare's mandatory funding. Need I say any more? So when we talk about Medicaid, traditional Medicaid, nobody's talking about changing traditional Medicaid, those people that have been on the program for years. The expansion under the Affordable Care Act, we need to come up with a safety net for those who are truly indigent. That's all well, it's out there. But as I've said before in other areas, it's like anything that gets incredibly politicized, the issue gets ruined. And guess what? Healthcare is now on that list. So what we need is the leadership to go, listen, here are the fixes, quit saying repeal and replace. There'll always be federal money in healthcare, but let's make it the best for our buck and learn from the mistakes of the past and move forward to where we can get on with those sorts of things. But right now, Marilee, my direct thing, the politics is paralyzing everybody because they're afraid to go out and say, I'm willing to give it a shot, and if it doesn't work and you fire me, then I'll accept that.
Let's hope it comes together.
Yeah.
That's all you can say, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Great information today. Thanks for being here as always. That does wrap up today's Eye on Washington. I hope you'll join us next week for another look at federal matters that matter most to you in Nevada. In the meantime, though, we're always here for you, providing all the federal news Nevadans need to know. Just go to our website, joycecommunications.com. While you're there, you can like us on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. Catch up with any shows you may have missed on our YouTube page. Thanks for joining us on today's Eye on Washington. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington, D.C. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce airs statewide in Nevada solely due to the generosity of our sponsors. Can your company help us continue our mission to remain Nevada's top source of federal news? If you can help us help Nevadans, please visit joycecommunications.com/WordPress/EOW sponsors and join us today. That's joycecommunications.com/WordPress/EOW sponsors.